Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. Hope you're doing really well. My name is Marty. Today I want to discuss the film Presence, and this is going to be my movie review for it. And this is something a bit different to what I normally do because I don't tend to post reviews. So obviously this is going to be a spoiler-free review. And first of all, I want to say, I feel like this was misgenred. This is not a horror film. I feel like this is a drama, been labelled as a horror film because there are various horror elements to it. However, I think honestly, the real horror of this film are the people in the film. You'll understand it when you see it. There's certain characters that aren't exactly the best people. As soon as this one person came in, I instantly just did not like them, and for good reason, it turns out. But yeah, one of the main draws to this film is, as you may have seen by the trailers, and I loved the look of the trailers.
It's trying to figure you out. It's trying to connect to you.
It did come across weirdly as more of a horror film in the trailers, and did look like there was going to be some real serious, tense moments with horror-like scares or something was going to happen. Which is a bit difficult when you consider that you yourself, as in the camera, is the presence itself. You are the ghost within this house. And so in my eyes, I was thinking, well, that's kind of difficult to give any scares on screen. Other things can be horrific, but if you're trying to make out that the presence is the thing that's horrific, it can't be. I suppose a bit like a Paranormal Activity thing, though, it could just happen. Like it does, there are some things that happen in the film, and it's genuinely shocking, majority towards the end of the film, which I'm not going to spoil, but there are certain points in the film that you are somewhat surprised that things have happened. One of the things that I would say to you as well is something which is very blatantly obvious as soon as you start watching this film. Now, I'm the sort of person that doesn't feel like this when films are like this, and that is it being slow. Now, I would say this is a slow film. It does feel very slow, but there is good reason for it because we're being the ghost, and you've got to think about it. A ghost is there at all times. Its presence is known in the house. And so there are a lot of dull moments. You're going to get dull moments. And the one thing that I found this is most likened to, in my eyes, is the film A Ghost Story, which if you've seen Netflix's A Ghost Story, you'll know what I'm talking about. It feels very much like that. It doesn't deal with things the same way, but to me, feels like it emulates a similar feeling. And some of that feeling I think is loneliness. There's certain elements of this film that feel very lonely, especially the very beginning of the film. We spend the first couple of minutes, I think it is, just roaming the house in the dark. Not dark, but it's a dark house where it's light outside, but it's fairly dark and dingy inside. And it adds to the fact that the ghost has been like this for ages. I do want to talk about the filmmaking perspective, the idea behind that, and it being put into practice. It's stunning work. There's a few qualms I've got with it, but for the most part, it's very, very good. I'll talk about that in this though. Now in this film, the relationships between the characters are very important. They're there for a certain reason. So we are focused more on the family, which is why I say that it's more of a drama really than a horror film, because the ghost element of it is there and very prominent throughout it, especially because we are the camera. You kind of forget it at some points, but they do draw you back into it, I think, fairly quickly, because you're very aware that you are watching from that point of view whenever they mention something, or they mention something that's gonna feel off, or you hear a noise and then a certain character will sort of glance towards where the camera is, or nearish the camera, as if they've seen something. It sort of takes you aback a little bit because you go, wait, can they see us? You're aware that you're a ghost and you're very invested in the story. I'd say go into it, be very open-minded going into it, and take the slowness as a good thing to contemplate. Not life, I mean just contemplate the idea of being a ghost trapped in this house alone, and these people just coming into the house and living in the property you are in. Now there's a reason it all makes sense, and they talk about a friend that passed away at some point, and this is not a spoiler by the way, but they talk about a friend that has passed away at some point, and it makes me realize that there are so many people that pair paranormal things happening with people that they have lost. And it's funny that people just initially pair them and say, oh, that must be grandmother, or that must be my friend, blah, 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 who has passed. Whereas in actual fact, it might not be them, and it's most likely not going to be them in those situations, but they pair them there because they've got an emotional link with that person, so they think that it's just going to be them. And it's cleverly explored in this film in different ways. I will say the silver nitrate mirror is a very good plot device. I really liked it. I thought it was a bit overdone at first when I was watching it, and even towards the latter half of the film, I was thinking, I feel like they've done this a lot. And there's the fair majority of the film that you kind of feel, I've seen this before, this has been done a bit too much, but they do it in a different way. Same thing, different way. And it works. But for me, the one gripe is that the trailers gave off a completely different style of film, and I do not understand one of the reviews that was given and shown in the trailer, scariest film of the year or something. And I know it's the beginning of 2025, but I know there's barely any horror films out at the moment, big budget horror films, at least in comparison to the rest of the year. But still, one, don't class it as a horror, or don't class it as the scariest film of the year. I did not find it scary whatsoever. None of it was scary. It isn't a horror. There's horrific elements to it, yes, but that's because of the people. And there are moments when you just look at the people and go, what are you doing? You want to just reach into the screen and shake them. And also there was a point I did do that as well with the entity as well. I did go, what are you doing? Do something! Because it confused me, especially when we find out what is happening and other things later in the film. I was definitely thinking, why was something not done sooner? Could you not have helped a bit more? I'm confused. But there's something that happens. All I will say is that the spirit gets very malevolent. It just goes off the rails a little bit at one point. And again, that's for good reason. Very well done, very well explored into the emotions of people who have lost people and how the family copes around it. But for the most part, at the beginning, it's how the family doesn't cope and doesn't get along with certain people in the family. And also how other members of the family are so sickly sweet towards one member of the family and doting, and it doesn't make sense to me how much, and I'm trying not to spoil it, I'm not giving away characters or anything like that, but I just don't understand the way the dynamic was between these two characters. I know there are people like it, but it's not healthy to be like that with one person and not other people in the family. It's not healthy in general, but it's not healthy to be like that towards one and not other people.
At first I just sensed it, and then things moved.
Moved?
Yes.
What things?
A lot of things. I saw it.
You saw it? You saw things move?
I saw the aftermath.
One thing I will say though is to do with the family. The dad is an incredible dad. He is such a lovely person. Chris Sullivan plays him and he's brilliant. Funnily enough, it's Chris Sullivan playing Chris Payne. But he does an incredible job. He really is there for certain characters. I don't want to give too much away. I could probably say it. You're just here to know if it's a good film or not and whether to see it. I would say it is, but you could probably wait until streaming. Yes, it's a good film. Yes, seeing it on the big screen is cool and it does look great. But there's not really anything that stands out to me that needs to be seen on the big screen. It could just be seen on your TV, on your computer, on your phone, wherever you want to watch it. I do think it's worth watching, especially because of the ideas and subject matter that it does bring up. And on the subject of the subject matter, it does bring up stuff to do with drugs and to do with abuse. I'm not sure how much of this I can say without YouTube being a pain to me. So it deals with certain subject matter incredibly well, especially for the style of film that it is. There were a few elements that I thought were a bit fumbled, and especially the characters feel like they were a bit fumbled as well. I don't necessarily know if that was the writing though, or if it was because a lot of the film was done in one takes. So to do with the style of the film, this is where it gets a bit strange, because you're watching it, it does just feel like someone roaming around with a Steadicam, which it is. It turns out it's the Sony A7 camera with a Ronin Steadicam that Steven Soderbergh used. One of the funnier bits I did find with the Steadicam was there's a shot going up the stairs, I think it's actually in the trailer, but it made me giggle because it's meant to be a ghost floating and roaming around the house. Okay, it's not too floaty, going through floors or doors or anything. It doesn't actually do any of that. It doesn't go through anything, which is strange. Because the ghost, there are certain moments where like a door closes and it doesn't go through the door. But I suppose it probably thinks of itself as not being able to, which does make sense in some ways from what we find out, but I suppose it's not been proven that ghosts definitely can do that kind of thing, but still, I'm saying this as if it's fact. Yeah, there's this point in the film where they'll go up the stairs, and if you watch, it's especially prominent when the camera follows the girl up the stairs, and the camera has been floaty for most of the time, but in this one shot, the camera is doing this. It's slightly bobbing, like bouncing along. And that's because it's the camera operator walking up the stairs. I think they've done a bit of stabilization or something, kind of can see it. Either that or it's the internal stabilization of the camera maybe, or the gimbal, the Ronin Steadicam thing they use that's counteracting the movement or something. But you can see something that looks like stabilization at certain points that I noticed anyway as a film person that does make videos. So yeah, there's also tensions in the marriage as well. So there's like even a phone call that talks about the issues at one point, or various phone calls, I can't remember now, but I think it's like 2 or 3, and it talks about something crime related maybe happening. Then you're going, what is that? Is that going to be an issue at some point? Is there going to be trouble caused by whatever this is, by this crime thing? Is it just suddenly going to get very Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Changes up almost entirely. Very sympathetic towards certain characters as to why they are being a certain way, and we do empathize with certain characters as you go through. I do feel like some of it is red herrings for what the story actually holds in store for us, and these are giving us these dramatic points in the film and giving us these talking points that do make sense for the rest of the film until we find out what the real meaningful ending is. So yeah, I'd say the start of the film mixed with the story is a great mix, and the characters are well written. However, because, and this is one thing I was going to say to you, is because of the long shots, because of the real long takes they do, if you make a mistake, they've got to reset the entire shot again, which for the most part, they're not massively long, but they're still a few minutes sometimes. So there's no cutting to another camera, it is just the camera you're on. So if you make a mistake, reset. So I think for some of it, they do just bumble the way through it. Things are said, which personally for me, I think that's more realistic. That if you do mess up, fumble your lines a bit, that happens in life. I do that daily. So I think if it happens in a film, it's fine. It's human. We are people that make mistakes. Funnily enough, that comes up at some point in the film. Can I just say, by the way, it's superb direction by Steven Soderbergh. Almost every single detail that is revealed to us from a certain perspective is then paid off for later. All I will say is something is said by the dad to the son, and then towards the end of the film, something else happens, and it really puts that sentence into a whole different light. I'm hoping this does make sense. By the way, I'm trying to give you as much of a formulated thought on this film without rambling too much or without going over too many different points. One of the things looking back on the film now I thought was quite funny as well is the very beginning of the film. You know, I said the opening shots are just roaming, lonely shots going throughout the house. It kind of reminded me a bit of an estate agent's video where you're just seeing a house tour. And then it's funny that we go downstairs and in walks in the estate agent with the family. And I thought that looking back on it, that was quite funny. However, I do realise that the cinematography done the way it was, that must have been very difficult for them to shoot, especially because of this one thing. So at some point in the film, we go upstairs and into one of the characters' rooms. And as the camera floats into the room, we see the window opposite. And various different times of the film we've seen this, we keep seeing reflections. But the amazing thing is, there is no camera in the reflections, there's no people in the reflections, and I know what you're going to say. That's easy to remove. That's second nature to them now, to do that kind of stuff. But that takes time and effort. That really does take a lot of time to get it to be realistic, looking good on camera. It's not just one shot of the window, it's a night shot, and in the black window, we see the background behind where the camera should be. Sometimes there are characters through the windows that we see, but yet there is no cameraman in the reflection itself. The only possible way that I could think they might have done that, other than removing the windows themselves out of the window frames, is potentially if they used an ND filter, or at least the filter that I'm thinking of in my head, because these lenses allow you to remove reflections for the most part. One of the characters' dialogues was so bad. It was so over the top. I don't think there's a human being alive that talks like it. And it just felt like they were talking in one-liners. Not to say that I don't love a good one-liner, but this character was kind of annoying with it. But very, very well acted. Again, I'm not giving away who's who and what's what, because there aren't too many characters in this film, and I want to leave some parts up to you to decide what you think on the film and not go into it with preconceptions of what certain characters are like, other than me saying the dad is just a really great guy. Now, I'd say the main backbone and meat of the story is the family drama, the family dynamics, and I really liked that because then we got to spend time with the characters, and yes, they didn't flesh out characters probably enough to what they should have. Yeah, one of the brilliant points about the family dynamic element of this film is because you get to see how they react and interact with each other first before any of the quarrels or the supernatural stuff happens in the film. And again, bear in mind, all of this stuff to do with the family is very, very important for later in the film. So even paying attention to the little lines they give each other, or the remarks to things, even the remarks to sound effects, or where the camera is. For the most part, the dialogue and acting felt very believable. There were, like I said, there were a few points that were a bit fumbled. Most parts believable. You know, with them doing longer takes, you're gonna get some mess ups. But like I said, we're humans, we make mistakes while we converse. So it's gonna happen. Since watching the film, I have seen reviews and read reviews, and a lot of people saying that they wouldn't watch it again. The good thing with this is when you find out something at the end, you then want to go back through and re-listen to every single thing. You'll have to let me know your thoughts, guys, because I thought this was very emotional. I got emotional at the end of the film. Anyway, the gimmick of the style of the film, it isn't the whole thing with this, and genuinely does subvert your expectations. I mean, it did for me. It delivered well by the end of it, albeit probably leaving the payoff till a bit later into the film as to what I think should have been ultimately a fairly great film. And I do think it is well worth a watch, and especially getting chills right at the very end. That shot, and I can't tell you what it is, really did send shivers down my spine. Anyway, guys, I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching. If you do like reaction videos, that's what I normally post here on the channel, but I have been doing a few of these just because I've seen a few films recently, so I wanted to give you guys these two reviews. That's for Companion and for this film as well. So yeah, if you want to check out the full uncut reactions to anything, you can check that out over on the Patreon page or as a YouTube member, and early access is over there as well, just like these were early accesses before they went out on the channel. So anyway, if you did like this kind of thing, consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel for more videos possibly like this, especially if I go to the cinema more often and I can do some more reviews if I feel like it's needed, or if I feel like I've got stuff to say. It's nice sometimes to have these discussions about films that we watch, and not necessarily just through a reaction, but it's whether you guys like these or not. Please let me know in the comments if you do. I'd really appreciate it if you let me know. Anyway, guys, have an amazing day. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
If you're still here to the very end, then thank you so much, and also a huge thank you to my wonderful patrons: Roger C. Griffith, Douglas Collier, Terry V, Miggy Love, Chris Holmes, Jojo, Thomas Masters, Shoehorn1234, Res, Patrick Durr, Andrew Blount, Carlos, Marla Mize, Rob, Chandra Blair, Scott, Paul Zawicki, Randy, Kirsten, Juan Pablo Camero, JL, Maggie, Freya Alexandra, Milo, Miranda, Edna, Gina Aman, Tess Avaland, Olivia, Maria Stojceva, Neno, Megan Janoviak, Rainy Tomo, Strawberry Tree, Kirsten Bailey, Boobly Boo, Louise Vanderhoven, Aubrey Terry, Wraithist, Heidi Steele, City D, Bumblebee, Joshua, Jesse, Rena Burra, Meet, Lolita Verbakovskia, Eli, Holly Jeffries, Alenka Hafner, HM Garth, Chloe Grover, Neb, Kyle Baker, Abby Barker, Tom Tattershall, Kristen Olds, Tilly Chum, Laura Hutchison, Tara M. Will Coxon, Sazzy Nation, Ferdinand Pitchard, Jim McKay, Sphere, Mel Days, Fran in the Pen, BG, Tara, Rags and Muffins, Nameless Human Being, Deb, Philippa Chapman, Emily, Panda, David Wayne Fox, Jessica Asakovich, Sue Pro, Naja in Workshop, Mike Tunnicliffe, Wolfgang Wolf, Lee, Harvey, Ankame, Aninya, Evan G, Violet Aurora, Pamela Chandler Rash, Scott Howard, Joshua, Robert Williams, Steve Webster, Amanda, Lipaz, Jamie Dodds, King, Happy Go Lucky, Caitlin, Analytical Guy, Maria Torres, Cliff Adams, Jonathan, Dirk, Annie Bonds, Crystal Appleby, Scorpius, Monica Murphy, Sebastian St-Ange, Varga, Leslie McKittrick, Nick Stark, Number 1 Carez, Jen, Biff McKeldin, Birgit, Stephanie Collins, Emily, Ken Duncan, Max, Helena Klitsch, Amy Quattlebaum, Ry Levi, Wayne DeFries, JJ, Mikhail Augustine Reed, Malcolm Hope, Lee Hallam, Bill Waite, and Charney Elkin. If you'd like to see more videos, there's some more on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you next time.